future.
There are no people.
There are no people in the future.
No people at all.
There are no people in the future.
Where did all my people go?
There are no people in the future.
Let me try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are all my people? I guess I'll fly away.
Hey, everybody, welcome. It is Monday, December 19th, 2022. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out to Coop Live. Yes, this is Kevin Mahoney, creator and founder of Raging Chicken. On Out to Coop Live, we talk to progressives, activists, and troublemakers of all sorts, right from our own backyards and from across the country. You can join us also at the end of our week for our Friday Politics Roundup, where we break down the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. And you know, yes, sometimes you got to check out our Wednesday show with Cyril Mychalejko, editor-in-chief of the Bucks County Beacon, but you don't have to wait till Wednesday until we can figure out when the heck our schedules will align. No, we've got them right here tonight, right, on Out to Coop Live. I'm absolutely psyched. Tonight we're going to be doing a little bit of the end of the year roundup, looking back at 2022 and ahead to 2023. Pretty cool. You can help support this show by becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/rcpress. You can also help out the show by heading over to our YouTube channel if you're not there already. Smash that subscribe button, like the stream for this show, and hit that notification bell so you know every time that we go live. And welcome to our new Mastodon community. Yes, that's right. As the part of Twitter explodes due to the wonderful soft hand of Elon Musk, right? Well, Raging Chicken is now on Mastodon as well. You can also find us there at rcpress@union.place. That's at rcpress@union.place. Hold on a second. All right, and for more PA Progressive Talk, tune in to the Rick Smith Show's live stream at 9 p.m. Eastern on his YouTube channel, Twitter, or Facebook. Subscribe to his podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Head on over to the ricksmithshow.com for the latest across all his platforms. And you've got to check out the Sisters of the Night Caucus podcast. The amazing PA women stirring the political cauldron behind this podcast rock the house, and they know where the potties are buried. Make sure to follow them on Twitter at the Night Caucus. That's at the Night Caucus on Twitter. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And attention, all you gamers out there. Yes, what's going on? Yes, the Game In. That's Game In with two N's. The Game In is a Quakertown-based black family-owned gaming store. They're friends of the show. They've got everything from retro N64s, the latest consoles, video games for all platforms, loads of collectibles, action figures, Funko Pops, walls of Funko Pops. And kids get discounts when they get A's in their report card. Can't beat that. Check them out on their Facebook page. Follow them on their Instagram. Follow them on Twitter at The Game In. And if you got a question about a game, looking for something hard to get, shoot them a message or drop them an email at thegameinpa@gmail.com. And a shout out goes to Jonathan Mann, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. Check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page and follow him on Twitter at SongAdayman. That's with two N's, at SongAdayman on Twitter. And for those of you who've been dealing with the school board wars, well, let's not let Paul Martino and his oligarch friends buy our schools and push extremist politics in our community. Raging Chicken has teamed up with Levelfield to launch a truly community-rooted PAC to invest in organizing, supporting local and statewide progressive candidates, and unmasking the toxic organizations injecting our communities with right-wing extremism. We're putting small-dollar donations to work to beat back the power of big money. You can get more information and drop your donation at ragingchicken.levelfield.net. That's ragingchicken.levelfield.net. Well, yes, this is going to be our last Out the Coop Live of the year, and we've got a good one for you. And this week's show, I welcome Cyril Mychalejko back to the show. Cyril, as I said at the top, is editor-in-chief of the Bucks County Beacon, that independent publication that has been at the cutting edge of reporting on people-powered movements in the region. Cyril joins me tonight to reflect on the year that was and looking to the challenges and possibilities of 2023. You can check out all the work over there at thebuckscountybeacon.com. You can follow Twitter, or you can follow Cyril on Twitter at C Mychalejko. That's C Mychalejko on Twitter. Follow the Bucks County Beacon on Twitter at BucksCo Beacon. That's BucksCo Beacon. All the links, of course, will be in tonight's show notes. Welcome back to the show, Cyril.
Hey, it's good to be back, Kevin.
Man, I'll tell you, it's been way too long. It's been way too crazy. And I'm so glad that you could join me for this kind of end of the year roundup. As I said to you, like I said, I can't think of a person I'd rather have on to kind of close out the year that this has been.
No, I appreciate that. It's great to finally be back.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about. I mean, one of the reasons and I mean that by saying, I can't think of somebody I'd rather have on because the Bucks County Beacon really has just taken off, and not just in our community, but has been taken off around the country. I don't know if you realize this or not, but it's been interesting. I joined, as I said at the top of the show, we joined over on Mastodon. We have a Mastodon account over there, and I ran into some folks in the Union.place space over there that were confronting some of the school board stuff in Los Angeles, right, and different places in California, and I said, hey, you should check out this stuff for the Bucks County Beacon because we've been dealing with this in Bucks County. And they're like, oh, yeah, we've already read all their stuff. And, so to see the kind of reach that the Beacon is getting because it's getting back to the roots of this local kind of like investigative, kind of cutting edge, paying attention to what's happening on the ground, that kind of reporting and commentary. So, I mean, first of all, kudos to you. And I'm just kind of really curious to get your take and the kind of that reflection back on what's happened with the Beacon over this past year.
Yeah, I mean, it's really been quite a year, Kevin, since, I took over as editor of the Beacon at the end of March. And, to be honest, it's just been really inspiring to see how it's been embraced, first by the local community, and then, statewide, and we've actually grown a national audience. But within the local community too, it's just, they're not just passive parts of the Beacon as readers, right. They're actually participating in it as contributors. And we've grown exponentially in the last 9 months as a result of that. Our work's been cited in the Inquirer, WHYY, Times, Salon, other publications. And I think this proves that building progressive participatory media, is not only possible, but it's necessary because we're filling in the holes either coverage-wise or ideologically, left by our two shrinking dailies in Bucks County.
Yeah, shrinking is the word for them too as well. I mean, the physical size of the physical paper has gotten smaller. I can remember when we get the Intelligencer here, and I remember started reading their stuff digitally online during the week, and then only to find out that the Sunday paper, about half of the Sunday paper was just kind of like mashed up articles from the week. So even at that level, like the physical size is smaller, the coverage area is smaller, what they're covering and how they're covering it, perspectives they're covering are all out of there. And the Beacon really, I think, has expanded to fill that space. There's no doubt about it. And I go back to one of the earliest conversations that we had, I think, on this show, what you just touched upon about participatory independent media. And that really has been, in many ways, your roots. I remember you talking about the kind of collaborative projects that you have worked on before, and to see that grow from this kind of, small little kind of idea of a publication into something where you're getting some just phenomenal reporting, really on cutting edge issues that is, I think, bolstering what's happening on the ground with movement. So it's been pretty inspiring on my end too, as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, sadly, as much as I've critiqued the Courier Times and the Intelligencer in the past, and we were talking about this earlier, it's like we really do need like local media and more of it.
As a baseline.
Exactly. Right. And like anti-tax zealot Grover Norquist used to quip like, I don't want to abolish government. I simply want to reduce it to the size where I can drag it into the bathroom and drown it in the bathtub. It seems like that's Gannett's approach to local newspaper staffing. You could literally like fit the staff of the Courier Times and the Intelligencer probably in a bathtub. But on the flip side of that, if you look at what's happening at the Bucks County Beacon, we're growing, right?
Right.
So like Ben Waxman, who's the publisher, and Emily Smith, COO, they've kind of given me the support and the resources to kind of grow this project out. And it's been incredible to see the types of contributors who've joined this media movement. People like staff writer Jenny Stevens, Jenny Cohn, who's been doing extraordinary work, exposing and reporting about, the threat of Christian nationalism, not only in Pennsylvania, but throughout the country. We have people like Catherine Caruso, and then locally, just a host of people, progressive voices who've been doing like the organizing on the ground, long before the Beacon came around. People like Kirsten Solfo, longtime peace activist Barbara Simmons, and Steve Nolan, Steve Sakay, Deanna Lagerman. We have Kadita Kenner and Molly Parzin and William Horn, yourself, Connor O'Hanlon. And we've also been able to include youth voices as well, like kind of like the next generation who are gonna take the torch. People like Sarah Zhang, Lily Freeman, Robin Reed and Penridge, Alexandra Coffey. And I think like having all these voices is what's really, it's the reason why the Beacon continues to grow, continues to kind of really make a difference in the community, with the reporting and the analysis that we're providing.
Yeah, I can't emphasize enough how great it was to see that you all start bringing in youth voices as part of this. Is one of the things that I've always thought about the role of kind of independent media, right, is to basically provide a space where people can cut their teeth on this work. If you want to be a journalist and you want to work for kind of, even whether it's a local paper or a national paper or so on, there's kind of pipelines for that, right? And that's what college is for and your degree is for and all that. And not that folks that work for the Beacon don't do that too as well, but rather, what motivates this kind of, folks that have something to say, right, and want to kind of express it, want to report on what's happening in their communities that doesn't necessarily catch the eye of, say, editors at, say, local or national papers, because they're, profit driven for the most part, right? I mean, they're like, well, that's not going to, people don't want to hear about that. But what you find out is the kind of work that young folks are, people who are new to this, they cut their teeth on this, they see that they can do this, and they build that momentum, and that feeds back into their community and into their movements. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's about us building community, and I think that was one of the, the main goals that I had, when we first set out, is to kind of just help continue to grow the progressive community in Bucks County and have it coalesce, and just be able to kind of, build movements from the bottom up where folks are like working together, because a lot of these problems and issues that we're facing in Bucks County, they're astroturfed, right?
Right.
By dark money, by organizations, right? And the only way that we can successfully combat that is if we come together, right? And then share our experiences of what we're facing, our wins, our losses, right? Our disappointments, and just learning from each other in order to kind of like combat this, this far right movement that is looking to kind of transform, not only the county and our schools and our society, but they want to turn back the clock anywhere from like the 1950s to the Crusades, really, if we're being honest about it.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And I teach this class called Activist Writing Media, and we look at the relationships between social movements and social movement media, right? The media that's kind of around this and the kind of a relationship between these two. And, there's this book by this guy, his name's John McMillan, it's called Smoking Typewriters, right? The 60s Underground Press and the Rise of Alternative Media in America. And in the kind of introductory chapter of that book, he talks about the role that newspapers and media have played historically in social movements. And we said, one of the first things you have to figure out in kind of any kind of movement is how to find each other, right? And then how to build around it. And a lot of what happens is that movements would turn to publications, right? Whether it was kind of leaflets or pamphlets or whether it's online blogs or so on, precisely because it's a place where community can see itself and see its work and connect. And in your case, even what you've gone one that step further, and to participate in the production of the media itself, which is absolutely critical. But I want to also go to your second point there, is that, is that reporting on these kind of issues. And I thought it'd be kind of interesting to hear you talk a little bit about what you saw as some of the, kind of key moments or key stories that came out of the Beacon over the course of the year. And I don't necessarily mean like, okay, let's pull out just what the best ones are, but ones that kind of like stick out to you for whatever reason. Because I've got some through kind of in my mind too as well.
Sure. I mean, for me personally, I think like one story that, really impacted me, and it was kind of like the first big story we broke at the Beacon after I became editor, and that was an article by Linda Lee, a former Beacon staff writer, about how Dasha Pruitt's campaign to unseat Congressman Fitzpatrick got derailed, because they clearly forged signatures on their election petitions, right? I mean, this was a huge story, especially like, never mind the fact that, the GOP has been banging this election integrity drum. And so I feel like Linda's reporting and thanks to a tip from a reader who reached out to me, but Linda's reporting on that was just really extraordinary. And I think another reason why I think that story is important, because it's something that the Courier-Times and the Intelligencer refused to report on, right?
Right.
So they for some reason, election integrity, someone actually forging signatures. We had copies of the petition, so you could see, and we talked to people whose signatures were forged. Like, that wasn't a story with them. And it just kind of, again, like, for people that have followed me on Twitter or followed my writings before, like, this has been a long-standing kind of like, critique of mine with those two papers, is that either they turn a blind eye to like right-wing corruption and extremism, or they actually like platform it and attempt to mainstream it. So that was one that just I thought really helped like put us on the map. What else? I mean, obviously, like, the school board issues has been huge with me. Even before I came on at the Beacon, it was something that I was writing for when I was had my biweekly column at the Courier-Times.
Right.
From Penridge to Central Bucks to Council Rock, what we're seeing now is just, little. And I still think they're a minority, but they've been able to seize power, right? They're maybe not a minority in the Penridge school district, but in Central Bucks, you have these pockets of extremism, and unfortunately, they're kind of some of the loudest voices. And what they're engaging in is essentially an educational pogrom to erase LGBTQ students,
Yep.
and their like existence from classrooms, right? They want to erase their visibility, and they also want to kind of erase them as well as like voices of color from not only curriculum, but from library books, as we've seen in their efforts to kind of create policies that allow parents to kind of challenge and essentially ban books from being brought into school libraries. Never mind the fact that, like, if a parent does not want their child to read something, right, or like participate in something in the classroom, they can call the school and say, I don't want my kid doing that, right? But that's not good enough. So you have this small group of extremists, and they are extremists. They want to dictate what is suitable for everyone else. And that's, that's obviously going to be a huge story moving forward as school board elections come up next year. We were talking before also, I really liked Catherine Caruso's story about immigrant rights action.
Loved it.
County. It's just this really kick-ass, all immigrant, all women-led organization that was formed after an ICE raid in Doylestown in 2017. And they're just providing like a tangible support network for immigrants, but undocumented and otherwise, in order for them to kind of like, one, feel welcome, and two, have access to the resources in order for them to kind of like live and build a life and take care of their family and loved ones and feel like they're part of the greater Bucks County family. Before I keep going on, I'll just end with this, Jenny Cohn's reporting on just
Yes.
kind of like, the Christian nationalism and the dominionist threat,
Yep.
that you can trace, to Doug Mastriano locally in Pennsylvania, and his little pockets of disciples throughout Bucks County, especially like I think like up in the Penridge area, is a big kind of like stronghold for him. But like nationally, right? And this is like a national kind of movement. And it's a national threat, the Christian nationalist threat, and a lot of those who were at January 6th and took part in the insurrection, identify as Christian nationalists, carrying crosses. You had the QAnon shaman leading the insurrectionists in prayer, right, in the halls of Congress. That's something that I think like we have to be made aware of, because we're seeing this locally in Bucks County. We heard it at a Central Bucks School District school board meeting in November, how these parents, again, a small yet loud number of parents want God in the classroom at a public school. So this is something that we're going to continue to report on moving forward.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that, I was definitely thinking about Jenny Cohen's reporting on dominionism in particular, because I think one of the roles that I've seen emerge from the Bucks County Beacon has also been this kind of contextual reporting, kind of like what Jenny Cohen has been doing, because, when you're in the thick of it, there's these amazing parents and community members that are, and students and teachers now who are going to the school board meetings, who are really pushing back and organizing there locally. Right. But there's so many moving parts just at the local level. What Jenny Cohen's stuff has been really good about doing is saying, okay, let's put this in a bigger context too as well. So we can see some of the language and some of the tactics of these organizations, so that we can see that we're looking for points of connection. This is not just what's happening here at Penridge, but now we get to see these connections between other districts too as well. So I think that has been absolutely fantastic. And the school board reporting, you just can't beat it. There's, I think maybe if you put what the Beacon has done and what Emily Rizzo has done down at WHYY, and I know that she's been citing your work, which is exactly what you want, right? But I mean, that's where people have been able to really kind of make sense of this. Chuck Clifton just kind of jumped in and said, "Love the Beacon's amplification of Peter Green and curmudgeon. The Beacon gives a voice to teachers and librarians, absolutely." And we were talking about this beforehand tonight too as well. It's like, he's somebody, Peter Green, who that you want to have kind of doing even kind of more with the Beacon too as well. And it's like that kind of move, I think, has been spectacular.
Yeah, and going back to like the teachers and librarians, just to make a quick point, it's just like these are the people who should be kind of like leading policies in these school districts.
100%.
But somehow, not somehow, it just on purpose, it's just like they've been vilified, right? Either they're communists, right, or they're groomers, and it's really. It's frightening a lot. One, the rhetoric that we're seeing coming out of these like Moms for Liberty type groups. Yep. And then just the chilling effect that it's going to have in education in general, where teachers are going to just feel so fearful, for their jobs, if not their lives, right? Because, if these people actually believe what they're saying and they're just not, this is not just some kind of like political theater. Like if they believe that like a teacher or a librarian is grooming their child because of like, a Toni Morrison book in the library, who's not to say that they're not going to take action into their own hands, right? Yep. Never mind the fact that you have like the PA Family Council and Project Veritas that are like recruiting informants, right, for people to like, report on, them, teachers like quote unquote indoctrinating or grooming students into like Marxist or, gender ideologies, which is just complete bullshit. So, we're living in really kind of dangerous times right now. And I think that's why, and education is like one of the bedrocks of, society and democracy, right?
Yep.
And I think that's why like the Beacon is so invested on school board reporting, and just kind of like defending public education, because like once, if they're successful in just burning down public education, there's not going to be much hope for this country.
Well, and let me tell you, when it comes to education too, as well, and we had this big fight in my own union on this, when we went on strike in 2016, like ahead of that strike, and I could tell like teachers exist in a context where they're being, not only are they being vilified, right, but they're also being told, right, in many cases by their own leadership, right, kind of like whether it's union leadership or political leadership, right, you got to be careful what you say because you want to keep the community on your side, and teachers are really kind of like hesitant to get out to in front because they're worried about their, like you said, worried about their jobs, they're worried about all sorts of backlash and making their kind of lives all that much more work, or worse, when they really want to be focused on what's going on in the classroom. What the reporting that you do in the Beacon, really kind of focusing on these stuff and basically showing teachers a different kind of narrative out there. Right? Because you don't get the narrative of like, the parents that are really upset that these right-wing extremists are coming in. What you get the narrative of are these kind of deep-pocketed right-wing organizations, dark money funded kind of pushes that make these headlines. And I think by seeing, as an educator myself, being able to see a different vision, a different narrative, one that is based upon, more supportive of teachers, more supportive of kind of multicultural education, more supportive of inclusion of all kids in the classroom. That I think emboldens teachers. I look at what's happened at Penridge as they're getting ready to cut the social studies programs, or like not the all social studies, eliminate a class in social studies. They want to roll back health programs. They want to, do all sorts of curricular changes that are based upon this right-wing ideology. Now you've actually got like all the social studies teachers showing up to school board meetings and then having that kind of, their voices and their arguments get out there. And I think that's part emboldened by the organizing on the ground and then the reporting in places like the Beacon. And I know for me, that has been one of the primary goals of something like Raging Chicken and the podcast, is to find folks and then being able to kind of amplify the work that's going on, right? So you kind of like create that sense of, yes, people are paying attention. So, I mean, that's a huge gift, I think, to the community in kind of our organizing efforts.
Yeah, and like you said, like there's been like great work on the ground, both in Penridge and in Central Bucks. You have groups like Advocates for Inclusive Education, which is really being driven by community members in Central Bucks. You have on statewide Education Voters of PA, and I'll have a column coming out in the next day or two. I spoke with Susan Spica from there, and they're taking a more like proactive role in just forming kind of like what we were talking about, like countywide and hopefully like statewide coalitions to kind of like push back against this extremist agenda. And I think the other point I would want to make about this is, especially like heading into next year when we have elections going, we do have to remember that like I'm pretty sure like these extremists are in the minority. Right now, I know like the Bucks GOP has been like radicalizing over the last 10 years, but I think like there's a possibility for folks to build bipartisan coalitions of people who kind of like who get it, right? Who respect education, who understand the worth of exposing students to different ideas and to different kind of critiques or viewpoints of history, right? Because there is no just like one version of history, right? Like there's a history of Black America, that the way they kind of like perceive, what happened during the Civil Rights era. Before then, getting the perspectives of Native Americans and their history in the United States, and just the kind of like the history of like white America as well, right? That, and so like if you're not including like all these voices, like you're not creating like well-rounded students, let alone like well-rounded like human beings and like citizens of the country. And I think that's why like, I think it was telling, and this was from last year, but it was like Penridge for Educational Liberty. Like they were at one meeting, and it was just like, like 90% of the authors that they were signaling out were Black, right? Never mind, it was like Langston Hughes, like James Baldwin, Amanda Gorman. Like these are the authors. Like these parents are outraged about having their kids exposed to. I mean,
but they don't see color, Cyril. They don't see color.
No, not at all.
Right. Sorry, I couldn't resist. No, it's true, and it's like, and that's what they do, and it's to have that space to kind of point this stuff out to was awesome. And one of the things that I'm before we talk a little bit about where we see things going forward, what we're going to need to pay attention to, what we kind of got on agendas coming up in 2023. One of the things that I also want to say I really appreciate about what's happening in the Beacon is, for someone like me who's kind of out here doing this podcast, looking for folks that are doing good work. The reporting that's been happening in the Beacon is like, that's one of my go-tos, right? Because like I say, okay, look, to get reporting on the Beacon, let me reach out to some of those folks, right? Get them on the podcast to talk further about kind of what they were reporting on there. Because in my view is like, that's what it means about creating a kind of a progressive media infrastructure in any place, is that it's not just you have like one place that goes out and it has one article and then it goes away, right? But it's about keeping this kind of conversation going and have multiple kind of takes on this, and kind of like letting other people know like where these people are, how they're thinking about it. And that's how you create counter narratives, right? That's how you kind of make sure that you're building a movement, is that you're having people making sure they feel valued and amplifying the work that's happening on the ground. So you make sure it doesn't go disappeared into the ether.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's one of the things like we're trying to kind of do, is just bring in like different progressive voices within our reporting, and introducing these voices, to our readership, whether it's folks from like the Southern Poverty Law Center, Common Cause, right? Or, just local folks in the community that are just doing work on the ground. Yep,
100%. So let's talk a little bit about kind of where we go from here, right? So we had, 2022, I'll put it this way. I am very happy 2022 is coming to a close. And I know, like, look, this is like a calendar year. It's an arbitrary kind of distinction that we make in terms of the way the year is broken up. But nonetheless, right, I've always been a fan, I have to say, of the kind of New Year's looking backward, looking forward kind of moment. It's always been a reflective part for me too. And 2022 has been, it's probably one of the harder years that I've had of late. I mean, harder than some of the thick of the pandemic, just in terms of like things in my kind of immediate context. I mean, obviously there's lockdown and there's all that other kind of stuff that took place, but it's just been a hard year in some ways. And I think that the lead up to this midterm was amazing, seeing the organizing that was going on. And now I'm starting to look forward to 2023 and about, both some of the challenges moving forward, and some of the possibilities. So I'm curious, when you're looking ahead now and you're thinking things that we need to be paying attention to, things that you want to make sure the kind of Beacon is going to be covering at this point. Obviously we can't predict it all. But some of the things that you're kind of looking forward to 2023 that both people are going to be paying attention to, and you think folks at the Beacon are going to be.
Sure. So I guess to start off with is that the Bucks County Beacon, we have a budget for 2023. We're fully funded, and we're going to be expanding our coverage as we have throughout the year. We're going to bring in more reporters. We're still going to I still want to kind of like build on the local voices that we're including in our editorial and analyses pieces. And what I'd like us to accomplish is to, do more state house reporting, because what's happening in Harrisburg is going to have a big impact, on people's lives. And we're already seeing that happen with this kind of, I don't know if it's a coup in the House of, the state rep house.
A clown show coup.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Republican Party like grasping onto power to try to literally preserve minority rule, right? And I think like their end game is these constitutional amendments that covers everything from potentially banning abortion throughout the state, making it unconstitutional, to like raising the voting age, which has been largely under the radar of some reporting. For me though, like the huge issue, it's got to be like all hands on deck for like these school board elections. Like that's what everyone needs to kind of really focus and rally around. And that's why like your project is so important about like helping kind of like counter the dark, either dark money or oligarch money of like
right.
Locally, because money matters, right? It matters in election as much as you don't want it to. It makes an impact, right? Like if we look at like why Fitzpatrick was able to defeat Ashley has at the clip that he did was because I put it down to one, money, and two, unfortunately, like a lack of like critical reporting by the two local newspapers on Fitzpatrick's not so moderate record.
Right.
And in addition to the school board, there's going to be like local, like municipal elections that the Beacon's going to invest in and cover. Especially with like the county commissioners, who've been stalked by, 3 or 4 members of the far right consistently. So like they have them in their crosshairs. And the Christian nationalist threat's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, I think the Christian national stuff is going to go on a bit of a slow burn for the next few months, but then we're going to see it ramp right back up. I'll put money on that one. What you also mentioned about the school boards too, I think is absolutely critical for 2023. And you mentioned the pack that we put together in partnership with Levelfield. The whole idea, I had a couple questions that were leading up to the midterms about asking if we were going to use any of the kind of money that had been donated for those midterm elections. And my response is no, because you know what? People are going to stop paying attention after 2022, right? And the school board elections are coming up in 2023. Right. And I think that's where the focus has been of what this pack is, and making sure that we have resources early. Right. Now, let's be clear. Right. We don't have billionaires that are kind of dropping in millions and millions of dollars into our little pack. Right. But the idea is that, we can actually pool our resources, pool our money, just like we're doing in kind of organizing, and making sure that we're kind of, helping out with some of the infrastructure stuff. So it's one thing, it's one, and I'm sure everybody who's worked on candidate campaigns this past year knows this full well. Yes, donating to specific candidates is absolutely critical, but there's a whole infrastructure that happens underneath there, right? Both in terms of advertising, both in terms of logistics and building out that infrastructure that generally gets short shrift when it comes to other, outside parties kind of investing in organizations. So that's the kind of thing that we think we can have a little bit of an impact on, concentrating it for sure. The other thing that, for me, kind of coming out of my angle, I know that this is something that I'm going to be focusing on coming up in 2023. As folks know, listen to this show, I work at Kutztown University. It's part of the state system of higher education, and ABSCUF is my union. We are in contract negotiations this year. And there is widespread feeling, especially among union leadership, that we're, they're coming for the state system, right? In particular, the chancellor of the state system is going to do more to kind of take apart the state system and turn it into something that is kind of unrecognizable from what it used to be. So that's going to be something that's going to be critical for me to be paying attention to. We know that we've already seen the consolidation of 6 universities, state-owned universities, into 2. That's happening both in the kind of Northeast and the West, and this is going to be really a problematic time to see what happens in public higher education in the states. You're going to hear me more about that. I also think, and this is something I've been trying to harp on an almost weekly basis, I think we're going to start seeing the local attacks against teacher unions happening in our school districts. So I think we're going to need, I know Amy Connect has been writing a little bit in the Bucks County Beacon about the Palisades School District. I think we're going to need to pay attention to what's happened to Palisades School District. I think we're going to need to pay attention to what's happened at Souderton School District and the Quakertown School District, even more than what we see in Penridge and Central Bucks, kind of expanding out the circle to see what's happening in these districts and start helping build those connections and facilitate those connections in our communities. So I think those things are going to be really, really critical. Let's go there. And then I think is about highlighting, as you all have been doing amazing work on, the people that have been and continue to be building community-based organizations around Bucks County and the region. So making sure that everyone in our community, your community, the kind of broader community is aware of each other, right? I think is so important for the work that we're doing.
No, absolutely. And I would include like Council Rock School District in that as well.
100%.
There's just a big, controversy over, there's some right-wing activists wanted to show this kind of like propaganda flick that accuses teachers again. It's the same old kind of like, tired, stale tax, but apparently this kind of gained traction, accusing them of being like Marxism. Like I watched the movie, it suggested that John Dewey was like a Soviet. The Department of Education was the result of like a communist conspiracy, and that teachers are teaching students X-rated sex acts, and this is something that they want to show the community. And, sadly, again, it's something like the Courier Times kind of like sanitized and whitewashed to try to like make it a free speech issue. Like, oh, well, you can just, they should have showed it and then just debated it. Right. So, but you don't even like you don't give something like that, it was like, if the John Birch Society and QAnon produced a movie together,
yep.
Like that's essentially the crux of it, and you don't legitimize that, right? You don't even like that. That's not even an argument to have. It's just insane, right? It's
right.
Absurd, and that's why I think, like, getting back to the election just for a second, it's just about common sense and common decency, right? And just like letting like actual like professionals, teachers, administrators, set the policy, right, that are best for kids and students in their education, right? And obviously, like, the pandemic had an impact. Of course it would, right? But I think, like, the far right kind of like used that as an opening to kind of just provoke outrage, and then just to kind of like recycle these same old arguments, right? That we've heard since the Cold War with like the new like QAnon like kind of like grooming thing, like, I mean, even Satanism has like entered the conversation, where like masking was supposedly a satanic ritual. And we have one school board member in Central Bucks School District who was complaining about actual demons walking among us, corrupting our children. This is
blew my mind.
So.
Yeah, that speech just blew my mind. 100%. Yeah, I mean, it's like if this would be a bad B movie if it weren't our lives, right? I mean, that's how I really look at it. I really look at it. Well, listen, I know we're running up on time, and then you've got a kind of a busy little life you do over there, Cyril, in a very good way, I think. But so, are there other things that you want to kind of leave folks with before we kind of wrap this one up for the year?
Yeah, I guess I would just thank everyone, right? Thank everyone for kind of like embracing the Bucks County Beacon, as a progressive independent media project, and for being part of it, because we wouldn't have the success that we've had without the community kind of supporting us and being part of it. And I'm really excited about kind of, where this takes us next year. With you also coming on to having like a greater role as we kind of like expand our podcasting, and just seeing what we can build not only in Bucks County, but, hopefully statewide.
100%. Well, Cyril didn't mention it, so I'm going to say there's a way that you can help support the Beacon directly too as well. You can help over the buckscountybeacon.com/support-the-beacon. There's going to be a link in tonight's show notes, and there's a nice little button there. You can go right to that website. You can kind of give $10 a month. You click on that little button, $10 a month, or there's a little drop-down menu. You can start even at $5 a month. You want to become a monthly supporter. You become an annual supporter for starting at $25 a year, or just a one-time supporter. You want to shoot him with donation. You got a little extra cash for whatever reason right now. You want to shoot him a little donation, say thank you. That's great. And look, why not start sporting the gear? I'll say it, right? They've got, I didn't even know this, Cyril, by the way, until like this past week. I've been like so busy. I haven't kind of gone to explore the site in a while. I'm like, oh my God, you got swag. Look, you got merch, right? So if you want to get your own Bucks County gear, you want to get a beanie, you want to get a hat, you want to get a t-shirt, a mug, water bottle, you name it. You can head on over to the Bucks County Beacon, get it for yourself, get it for other folks in your community, and you can help spread the word that way too as well. Because I think any way that we can support the work that you all are doing over there, I am incredibly thankful for the work that you do. Amazed at what you've been able to do in such a short period of time. And I think that, the work that the Beacon is doing is going to be all that much more essential as we move into 2023, which promises to be, lots of fights at the state level and at the local level.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and thanks for your part in kind of helping us grow.
Hey, I do what I can, man. I do what I can. Well, Cyril, listen, and I want to thank everybody who's listening tonight, who's watching tonight live, everyone in our podcast community. It's been absolutely fantastic to see this podcast also grow, to see the guests that we've been able to bring on. I want to make sure everybody knows, I mentioned this on our Friday show too as well, that I had a couple requests to have Alyssa Bowen back on the show. She's been on about 3 times now. She works for True North Research, and she is coming on. She will be, we're going to start off 2023, one of our first couple shows that we're going to have her on, talk about some of her recent work, again, focused on the dark money around school boards, to kind of kick off 2023. And we've got a bunch of other stuff lined up, which we're really looking forward to. As Cyril mentioned, I'm going to be doing some more work with the Beacon, so look for more fun in podcasting kind of around here. But I really want to make sure I say thank you to all of our supporters, all the people that are out there kind of listening to us on a weekly basis, to our Twitter warriors who are always tweeting out our shows, letting everybody know, getting that stuff out into the network. Thank you for those folks who have contributed to the pack that we're doing Level Field, and most importantly, for folks that are sharing the work, right? That let us know when they like something that's happening here. They got suggestions about future shows. It's been really incredible to be doing this, especially at a time where you've got an organization like the Bucks County Beacon really laying the groundwork for really truly independent, community-based publication. So there it is. So Cyril, man, I wish you all the best for the holidays and for the new year, and I look forward to see you on the flip side.
Thanks, you too, Kevin, and happy holidays and happy new year, everyone.
There it is, everybody. Have yourself an awesome holiday season. I know that some folks are already in the midst of Hanukkah. We got Christmas coming up, Kwanzaa, and the New Year, and so much more. And we got a couple days away for the solstice too as well. So it's that time of year. This would actually be midwinter celebration if you're interested in D&D stuff too. By the way, just letting you know, everybody. So anybody, this is Kevin Mahoney, creator and founder of Raging Chicken. I want to thank you so much for all the work that you have been doing in our communities, to to help bring the sane into something that is a little bit topsy-turvy. You get a chance, head on over to the buckscountybeacon.com/support-the-beacon and become a contributor, become a supporter, be a one-time supporter, pick up some merch. Appreciate it. And if you want to help support this show, you can head on over to patreon.com/rcpress and become a patron for as little as $5 a month. All right, everybody, we are heading out of here into the holiday season. I'll see you again on Friday, but then after that, we're done for 2022. Gonna put this year to bed. All right, everybody, lots of love, lots of support. See ya!